Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're going to give a few minutes for people to join us. And while we do that, we always have a little bit of fun to see the geographic distribution of our attendees. So if you could just put in the chat where you're from. Oh, we got Sophie already on it. Quebec, Canada. Chris Benner, Sanford, Michigan. David, I'm glad to see you. I would be nervous if you didn't show up to one of these Dynamo office hours. Philadelphia, representing. "70 degrees. You shouldn't even talk like that, Chris. I'm gonna send you some frost.
It's March. I'm just gonna take it when we get it.
Yeah. Jonathan from Tel Aviv. Just adding people here. We'll keep going. Yeah. Sorry, Saul. Not so sunny. Not so sunny here either. We're probably in the same boat here, just different coasts.
Yeah, a bit cloudy today, and it's been pretty snowy for the past couple of months.
Charlie in downtown Los Angeles. That's really specific.
Good to know.
Yeah, just give another minute here. People hopefully are getting their reminders that it is today. Oh, yeah, Rotterdam, sunny. That's interesting. It should be Boston, sunny. Rotterdam, foggy, right? Bob, Seattle. There's another. You know, I would be shocked if that was sunny.
Foggy places represent today.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right. Well, I think we can probably get it going. Welcome everybody to today's community conversation. My name is Sean Hurley, and I'll be your community host. We're joined by the talented Saul Amore today, and we'll be talking Dynamo. So let's kick it off. Community conversations are virtual meetups featuring expert speakers. Yeah, I know you love that legal slide. Let's give it
happy. Sorry.
Expert speakers from across community sessions range from deep dives, tips and tricks, and live demonstrations on products such as AutoCAD, Revit, Dynamo here, and Fusion 360 to roundtables and industry insights. So kind of everything that we can involve a conversation about. Emerging trends, career stories, all experience levels. So it's beginners to experts. All right, Saul, your favorite slide.
Alrighty, here we go.
All right, just a quick one. This is really simple, and it's kind of weird with Dynamo because Dynamo is a different type of Autodesk product, but just want to make sure everybody's aware that, if we talk about forward-leaning things that are future developments, plans, things like that, that you don't make any decisions based on anything other than the products as they are today. So whether it be AutoCAD, Fusion 360, Dynamo, Revit, whatever it is, Alias, that you make any purchasing decisions based on how that product is shipping today. All right, next, sir. Before we begin, just a few little rules or guidelines. Everybody's line is muted to reduce the background noise. We ask you to put on your camera, just kind of give us a little in-person feeling if you feel comfortable in doing that. And hopefully, at AU, we'll do this session. I'm hoping we do it live. So we'll have live people in attendance, live Saul, live Jacob, and, people that don't make it online. So anyway, raise your hand, use the little Zoom thing down in the bottom right to indicate you have a question, or you can put it into the chat. The sessions are always recorded, and there'll be a message sent out to everybody when that recording is posted, as well as a bunch of links. The other thing is if you didn't get the message or whatever, later today, you just go back to the event page. The link will be there, as well as the Dynamo YouTube session list. I think this is number 25.
25, yes.
25. Ooh, got it. All right. Next, please.
We're creeping up there.
I'm Sean Hurley. I'm the Autodesk Community Engagement Manager. I'm a geeky technologist with a squeaky chair and an annoying dog in Bend, Oregon, where it is not sunny today.
Awesome. All right, hello everyone. My name is Sol. I'm the product manager for Dynamo, and we're joined remotely, but not really, a little bit by Jacob today. Unfortunately, he had a conflict that came out of left field, so he has pre-recorded his pieces, hence why the little YouTube play button is representing Jacob today. Both of us are really enthusiastic about Dynamo. Jacob is actually not a designated support specialist anymore, I need to update that, but he's in the consulting arm of Autodesk and is happy to help you out with all of your consulting needs. So without further ado, today is the 25th session in the Dynamo Office Hours series. So if you're joining us for the first time, please do go and check out the YouTube link. We have all of the previous series up there, pretty in-depth stuff covering mostly core Dynamo concepts. And latterly, we've now been getting into more specific host things. And so today, we're talking about hosts of the Dynamo party. And this is basically all of the hosts for Dynamo that is not Revit or Civil 3D, which we've had slightly deeper dives into. And so today we're covering the other host here, which is Alias, Advanced Steel, Robot Structure Analysis, and FormIt. So we're going to do around about a 20-minute presentation. There's a handful of slides on each of these implementations. It's light touch, and we're going to get deeper into them later in subsequent sessions. We're going to do a not quite so live demonstration, courtesy of Jacob from a pre-recording, and then there's a Q&A. And then as usual, if you do have a question, please do feel free to put it in the chat and we'll be able to answer that on the fly. Sean, if you wouldn't mind calling out any questions that do occur, because I can't see the chat window as I'm presenting today.
Absolutely, so, and I just pasted the link to the YouTube series list.
Awesome, appreciate it. All right, so without further ado, the first thing we're going to explore a little bit today is the connection between Dynamo and Advanced Steel. So Dynamo and Advanced Steel is one of our other hosts. It's actually the third host that is an in-process host, which means like Revit and like Civil 3D, it is an in-process integration, which means that you cannot interact with Advanced Steel and Dynamo without having Advanced Steel open. It has to live within that memory space. It also comes with an installer as opposed to out of the box, which means that you have to go through and select the product updates page under your manage.autodesk.com tab to then go and search and filter for Dynamo to find the actual add-in of Dynamo for Advanced Steel if you wish to use it. So it is launched from an add-in tab as well inside of Advanced Steel itself, which you see here. Once you go to the add-ins tab, you can then find Dynamo and voila, use Dynamo to your heart's content inside of the Advanced Steel space. So this has a separate installer under the updates of the accounts portal. When an update is made, you do have to go and update from that page, and it creates specific objects, specific Advanced Steel objects are created in their own section of the library, as per every other host that we have here too. So objects come to Dynamo by selection method, the same kind of paradigms that you have in Civil 3D and Revit, and object geometry and data is pushed into Revit and into Advanced Steel in very similar ways to Revit too. So the experience that you have by working with Advanced Steel and Dynamo is a similar experience you would have when you work with either Civil 3D or Revit and Dynamo too. So there are a bunch of specific nodes, quite a lot of them here for Advanced Steel, and they do some really interesting and powerful things. So as part of this, you gather objects inside of Advanced Steel via some specific selection events. In this case, you have select.select Advanced Steel objects as a way to do manual selection. And to do bulk selection, you have things such as get steel objects by type. And these parallel the same kind of categories section you use inside of Revit. And then selected object types have their own constructors and methods, just like every other experience inside of Dynamo. So you have your constructors, you have your properties, and you have your actions. And there's nodes that represent all three of those categories inside of Advanced Steel, albeit there are only a few properties that are exposed inside of the Dynamo ecosystem. So type selection inside of Advanced Steel is mostly via text. So you're going to have to know your database a bit. You're going to have to understand what you're working with for it to be successful and for you to be able to work with Advanced Steel. So most things actually come in with a string base inside of the Advanced Steel world, but properties can also be set at creation or after, similar to the way that the Revit experience works or the Civil 3D experience works with families and objects. You get to be able to create the thing before you set properties back to the thing. And one thing to call out and note is that creation does not introduce bindings inside of Advanced Steel. So you need to take a little bit of caution here when you're working with Advanced Steel, because repeated runs will create repeated instances. There's a little bit more nuance when it comes to working with Advanced Steel than there are when it comes to element binding in something like Revit or Civil 3D, albeit element binding has its own nuance as well. So there's pros and cons to both aspects here. And then we're going to have an advanced steel demonstration at the end. That is Jacob's pre-recorded video, but that is like a little snapshot into the world of advanced steel and Dynamo. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to do deeper dives on these integrations in the future too. So the next integration we're talking about here is Alias. So Dynamo works with Alias as well. This is the only host that we have right now that kind of falls outside of the buildings realm. So Alias being mostly used in sort of automotive design, aeronautical design, and so on. Alias is mostly geometrical focused. So as an entry point to get into Dynamo inside of Alias, it is located inside of the transform palette. So this is really how you want to get into Dynamo. And once you're in the transform palette, you need to hold on left click on the player icon, and from that you will find the Dynamo icon itself, or vice versa, depending on which one is your default here. So this is the way to access Dynamo inside of Alias. And then once you get into Dynamo, it is the same kind of ecosystem that you all know and love. And as mentioned previously, it really is all about geometry. So the Alias integration right now is almost entirely purely focused on geometry. And what you'll notice on your screen right now is that there really is only 2 nodes that work with Alias. And those 2 nodes that work here are select from Alias. So you can select Alias geometry and send to Alias, which means sending geometry back to Alias from Dynamo. They're quite powerful 2 singular nodes, and they do some funky things, which we're going to get into in a second, but they are really a light geometry set, or a light library set for the Dynamo experience. So the first interesting thing that happens here inside of the Alias space is that unlike every other host we have talked about today, Alias is the first out-of-process host we have. So we mentioned in some of our previous sessions what being in process meant, which means you have to live within the memory space of an application. You get access to everything inside that memory space, but it does have some limitations around sort of execution order, the ability to do multi-threading and so on. Whereas out-of-process essentially means that Dynamo is completely detached from Alias, which means you have a Dynamo application, you have an Alias application. They are singular entities and they talk to each other. And they talk to each other through this thing called inter-process communication. So what this means in sort of functional terms is that the UI of Dynamo won't lock up when you're processing Dynamo, because you get the same experience you get with Dynamo Sandbox, which means you can keep working in the UI, you can keep adding notes, you can change groups, you can move the locations of nodes as it is actually executing. So you get a performance or efficiency benefit there. And it also means the UI of Alias won't impact Dynamo. So unlike Revit, when you click run on a Dynamo graph and it locks up your UI and you can't do anything, working in Alias means you can. You can work in Alias while you're running a long computation event inside of Dynamo and have complete control of your Alias experience. You can also run and work inside of Dynamo and the UI as you're running a Dynamo event too, and have complete control of that experience. The caveat to this is that because they are separate, you have to ask for updates. So that does not come out of the box inside of Alias. So there are a couple of different selection tools inside of Alias, and this is useful as a means of filtering what you bring into Dynamo. So in this case, we have the select from Alias node. This is like a combination node of both a sort of a category and a selection paradigm. So in this case, it's similar to a Revit node that we released recently, although this node has been in Alias for much longer. That allows us to then go and choose, say, curves and then do select. And when we drag over a series of geometry inside of Alias, it's only actually going to pull in the curve geometry. Ditto for planes, objects, points, T-splines, and so on. So that category of geometry is going to be pre-filtered before you even select it inside of Alias, which is pretty awesome for working through some complex data sets, and maybe you only want to select certain elements from that. So once you have selected that category inside of Dynamo, and then you get to click the select button inside of Alias, you open the Alias dialog here, which has Dynamo, gives you the ability to use selection sets and select everything that you have inside of that set from that dropdown, and then you get to send to Dynamo. So the send event from Alias to Dynamo is this inter-process communication. You have to actively choose to send data from Alias to Dynamo, and then actively choose to send data from Dynamo back to Alias. There is an event that you have to, generally speaking, by clicking run, you're doing this, but you also have to actively do this inside of Alias. So then once you have done that send event inside of Alias, back inside of Dynamo, you now have your elements actually selected, and you can work with that geometry to your heart's content.
That's all?
Yes.
We do have a question.
Sure.
It's from Adam Riley. I'm curious about what the reasoning for the in and out of process decisions for each host was.
So it's based on what the actual application that is the host has chosen themselves. So Revit chose 20 odd years ago to be a sort of in-process application, and that comes with pros and cons, and that is very, very hard to change over time, because it takes essentially a rewrite of the program to switch it from out of process to in process and vice versa. So essentially, we have a handful of hosts that are in process because they chose for their own application purposes, like Revit, so the 3D Advanced Steel, to be in process. And then that means they have like a closed ecosystem. It's like a wrapper around it's a box full of stuff, and you can't get into the box. Whereas the out of process application is a series of stuff that can then talk to a series of other things. They have to do it in a special way. It's this inter-process communication. So in essence, on the Dynamo side, we don't get to choose what the relationship is. We are in process if the application is in process, and we're out of process if that application is out of process. Anything else, Sean, or should we keep going?
That's it. You answered it very well.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to show you a snippet of a video, and this is a shout out to one of our colleagues, Gigi, for this. And apologies, it's going to jump in pretty quickly and truncate pretty fast as well. But this is going to showcase in Alias a little bit of the experience of working with Dynamo and some of the new things that are coming up.
Toolbox button in the Dynamo player, which opens a shelf containing all shipped Dynamo player scripts, like the new tire script, which has now a curve preview of the treads. This gives you a very fast preview of the treads before creating them and saves you a lot of time. The subdecar script lets you create a full body of a car by just using the rough centerline of the car shape and one curve to define the width of the body. This is a very easy way to start modeling your first concept designs. Or the closed curve to solid script, which takes one or more closed curves and generates a solid NURBS object. You can use the script to generate NURBS-based text from the text tool, or generating a logo from out of your curves. The hexagonal pattern tool creates a sub-dehexagon pattern, which is a very quick way to generate a grill pattern, for example.
So this is a short snippet of a video, thanks to Gigi on this one as well, but it showcases some interesting things you can do with the geometrical aspect of Dynamo. And even if you don't work in Alias, you could use that approach inside of Dynamo to deal with geometry in a similar way to get similar results, should you wish to translate these into, say, a building or a civil piece. So then beyond Alias, we have Dynamo in FormIt. And FormIt is a sort of conceptual modeling application that we had inside of our group for a little while, which has now moved into a different group inside of Autodesk, but we still have a very strong relationship with them, and they have a really interesting application of Dynamo inside of FormIt. So again, this is an out-of-process application between Dynamo and FormIt. They have a slightly different method here where they transfer geometrical data via SAT files in a read and write kind of format that are sort of hidden in the background and destroyed and created on the fly. And then they also translate non-geometrical data, so numerical, textual data via their own JavaScript API. So because a process is out of process, or the connection between Dynamo and the host may be out of process, they still have different ways that they want to deal with this sort of inter-process communication and different ways they want to translate the data between them. So the cool thing here again is similar to Alias. You're not going to lock up the UI of Dynamo if you're working inside of Dynamo and want to make groups and make some changes to your location or your layout of nodes. And ditto for the FormIt experience, if you're running a larger operation, you can still work inside of FormIt too, which is pretty cool. So the entire process is essentially detached from FormIt, and then it's in this loop of sending and receiving data when you make those conscious choices with the nodes that are available. So Dynamo graphs also, and this is a kind of a special case, can be embedded inside of a FormIt model, which means that graph you don't have to ship as a sidecar to the FormIt model. So if you get given that FormIt model from someone else, it's already going to come pre-baked with those embedded graphs, which is awesome. And you get to make edits to those embedded graphs and embed them again if you wish, or you get to make sort of unique changes to that graph for a particular instance and not embed that either downstream. The other cool and interesting thing that the FormIt integration does is they have the ability to send the data to the banner notifications inside of FormIt. And this is things around like renaming of nodes inside of Dynamo. So input nodes in particular here for things like select from format, which is their own node. If you rename that, it is going to come into this banner notification. So it's a prompt in the, when you click run for the first time on your graph, it's a prompt inside of the format space to say exactly what they're asking you to do with your selection paradigms. So specifically, FormIt has a bunch of different nodes. In this case, around about 13 different nodes. There are nodes that allow you to sort of select from and send things to FormIt. There's nodes that allow you to talk to the JavaScript API that they have inside of FormIt as well, which enables a whole new world of different things and different possibilities that is relatively unique inside of the world of Dynamo right now. And then also the ability to sort of generate notification messages, which we just talked about briefly, and set information on geometry and groups, which is a special flavor of how FormIt deals with Dynamo geometry, which we'll get to in a hot second. So Dynamo Player exists also in FormIt. It is different to what you might see in Civil 3D or Revit, but they have their own unique sort of flavor integrated into FormIt, and it has its own sort of pre-baked scripts that come with it too. So these are like there's a quick access button for Dynamo on the right-hand side of FormIt that allows you to open up this dialog, which is essentially Dynamo Player. And then scripts here are organized by category, which is at the top. So you can have your own sort of domain of different FormIt scripts if you wish, say facade or landscape or building form. And then underneath that, there's files, and some of these come with subfiles too and subfolders. So there is multiple ways to orientate your content here inside of FormIt, which is pretty awesome. They also have a couple of different icons inside of Player here. So you'll notice the one that is highlighted here in brown is got selection paradigms associated with it. This means that if you drag this graph into the Dynamo space inside, from this Dynamo space into FormIt, it's going to ask you to select something before you continue. Whereas the other more normal Dynamo logo is simply just going to run when you drag that in. This also enables you to do things like searching and filtering and refresh too. So then specifically for FormIt's flavor of integration with Dynamo, they use groups inside of FormIt quite heavily, which is kind of cool. So Dynamo geometry always lives inside of Dynamo groups, and each Dynamo group is associated with the Dynamo graph that created it. So when you select one of those groups, you get this kind of graph properties or group properties dialog on the right-hand side, and the entire section in purple here is related to Dynamo itself. So this is kind of a slightly different implementation of Player, but it's kind of the same thing too, because all of your sliders, your inputs and outputs are going to surface here, and you can make changes, and that's going to auto rerun the graph in the background. So if you have this graph on screen right now that has louvers and you wanted to change the density of those louvers or the size of those louvers, you can do so by simply selecting that group and changing that and having it rerun in the background, which is pretty cool. So selecting a group simply enables or exposes FormIt's version of Dynamo Player. And then you can also make edits in the player. We're going to recompute in the background. And the one caveat or thing to take away here is that all Dynamo groups do have this player graph, but other non-Dynamo groups do exist inside of the FormIt space. So standard groups inside of FormIt too. And they will not have the same interaction. Only if they have been generated in Dynamo will they have the section in purple shown here on the right-hand side of the screen. So we're going to look at a quick video here too around FormIt. we can stop that. So you'll notice that in the FormIt world here, if I go back 1 hot second and pause this, well, okay, it's not gonna happen. But you'll notice that essentially, if you have a group that has created geometry inside of Dynamo and FormIt, that group has those properties and will update based on context. So if you have a series of different graphs that are dependent on a series of different groups, creating a series of different geometry, and you run those again in sequence, it's gonna update those in the process. So what you noticed was we changed the floor plate, that then subsequently changed the glazing, that then subsequently changed the facade louver system as well. So pretty quickly, you can iterate through different design typologies in seconds as opposed to manually editing and creating that content. So then the next one we're going to look at here, the last one we're going to look at today before we jump into the not so live demo, is robot structural analysis. So again, robot structural analysis is another out-of-process application. I don't have a slide specific to that one, but it is again treated in a way where they have inter-process communication and treated as two separate applications simply talking to each other. So robot has quite a lot of different nodes associated with it, and it comes with two specific packages out of the box. So we have the structural analysis package and the 3D frame package, and this enables us to talk to the robot structural analysis API via these nodes. It comes with 115 different nodes, and they enable things like analysis, loading, modeling, and querying of the results back inside the Alias, the robot space. And then the 3D frame package specifically targets 3D workflows. So it's a bunch of really cool content here. Definitely recommend getting your hands on this if you're curious about exploring structural analysis. And what this means a little bit more deeply is that you can have a workflow around things like creating an analytical model inside of robot using analytical nodes, lines, and surfaces from Dynamo. You can then set attributes such as section shape, gamma angles, materials, and so on from Dynamo. You get the ability to define boundary conditions, things like supports and releases, define the loads that exist within that structural model here. So applying things like load cases to sort of nodal, linear, and surface loads. So get very specific and granular in this data if you wish. And then you get to go and run a calculation in Dynamo and get the results back in robot, which is pretty cool. So to look a little bit deeper at that kind of flow, you see it here. Like, what can you actually do inside a robot? You can generate Dynamo stuff. You can then push it back into a robot and automatically create an analytical model inside of the robot space via nodes. You can then go and apply those boundary conditions and loads inside of robot, calculate those structural loads, and then laterally you can bring that back inside of Dynamo to do other further workflows with you if you wish. So that is a case of bringing back potentially the color coding and those loads back into the Dynamo ecosystem. So we're going to look at a quick video here that is showcasing this in action inside of robot and Dynamo. And in this case, we're looking at a sort of arc frame sample file. So robot also comes with some really awesome sample files here too that you can explore. And again, with any of these hosts, you can go and check out their sample files if you wish to get an understanding of how to just generically work with geometry inside of Dynamo itself. So here we're talking about this arc truss and going through and mapping and setting some parameters back inside of robot before bringing it back into Dynamo. And then here is another example showing the flexibility of building a parametric graph inside of Dynamo with the ability to use sliders and generate sort of density and divisions across the structural landscape. And then you can then go and create this back inside of the robot space to run your analysis once you're happy. So you can think about the potentials of bringing this into, say, something like generative design, where you have competing objectives with which you need to go and explore and compete to get the best possible result you have here. So this is just showcasing at the end for a hot second the kind of difference that you'll see, and again, the similarities that you'll see between the geometry that's expressed in both of these applications, be it Dynamo or robot.
That's all?
Yes.
We've got some more follow-up from Adam.
Awesome.
I've had some thoughts in the past about using robot for some structural designs from our civil 3D models. You just made me wonder about running the civil in process and accessing robots out of process to be able to use the data from both files at the same time.
Yeah, entirely possible, for sure. And that is one of the benefits of this out of process kind of approach. So I think out of process applications are becoming more and more prevalent. If you think about like the web space right now, all of those are essentially out-of-process APIs. None of these are in process, and it does open up a whole new realm of possibilities to do things exactly like you just said, Adam, which is you have to work in process in Civil 3D because this is the way it's set up, but you have the potential to then talk out of process to robot. So what you see here is Dynamo expressed inside of robot right now. Historically, robots package was also just used with Dynamo Sandbox. And that meant that you could just download the robot package and run that with Sandbox on your machine or run that through any other host, such as Civil 3D. So 100% definitely would encourage you to explore that space and to reach out if you have any questions. And we'd also be really curious about the kind of results you can get to. Cool. Any other questions, Sean?
No, just Adam said awesome.
Awesome. Cool.
Thanks for that thought, Adam.
Cool. So we have about a 20-minute demo from Jacob coming up. So bear with us. It is a not so live demo, and so not quite so ominous danger music, hopefully. And hopefully this next 20 minutes you'll enjoy experiencing a demo of Advanced Steel and Dynamo working together.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's Jacob here. I'll go up on cam real quick. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm not going to be able to attend the call today. Sadly, I'm somehow double booked, and I'm finding out at almost the last minute. It's 11:15, so we got a couple hours here still. But I wanted to make sure we still had a good video or good demo for you guys. So I'm going to put something together now in Advanced Steel to sort of show how we can sort of automate creation of some steel elements. The few things to note here, the first Advanced Steel is one of the applications that's launched sort of differently for Dynamo. So we're going to go all the way over to our rightmost add-ins folder or add-ins tab, and then we're going to launch Dynamo for Advanced Steel. That's going to spin this up. This integration is a little bit different from most of the others in that it's treating objects primarily as objects, right? Relative to some of the other stuff that we're talking about, you know, the FormIt add-in, it talks a lot about geometry as opposed to the FormIt elements. Same thing with Alias, it's all about geometry there, right? In this case, it's really more just how do we get a steel piece? How do we make a steel piece? So on and so forth. So this is the piece, and the demo we're going to do today is we are going to make a spiral staircase. So I'm going to start by creating a point by cylindrical coordinates node right here. It needs a coordinate system, angle, elevation. This is a standard Dynamo node. We haven't jumped into our Advanced Steel section yet. So for our angle, let's actually use a code block for this. We'll define angle as equal to sweep start to sweep start plus sweep end, stepping however many steps we have. And we haven't defined any of these yet. I'm going to define height as a variable input, and steps is equal to height divided by 7 for 7-inch risers, math.ceiling. There we go, to make sure that we've got a maximum 7-inch riser height. And there we are. That would give us our angle, but we do need some inputs. Number slider here. Height's going to range from 12 to 144, stepping by 1. Sweep start from 0 to 360. And same for sweep end. There we go. Look there, and right now we've only got 2 because my height's pretty low. And they're really tight because my sweep end is pretty close, right? That looks a little bit better. All right, so now we need to set our elevation. We're going to start from 0 up to height, number of steps, we'll start to see something that looks like a spiral here, which is pretty cool. Then we need our radius. We're going to have R1 for our inside radius and R1 plus width for our outside radius. So I need 2 more of these. 12 to 48. That I did 133. And this one is going to be, actually no, let's go really big. Let's go 144 on this too. This will be 3 feet to 6 feet. Right, and there's our R1, there's our R2, and here's our radii. But now I only have 2 points. Right? The way I'm going to fix this, I'm going to say use levels. I'm going to set this down to level 1. Level 1, there we go. And now it's marching around, just like we wanted to see. We'll go ahead and pump up the height. 144. I feel like I should have more steps here. Let's look at what's happening here. 21 steps. Oh, there we go. I need to set this to number of steps. That's looking much better. All right. All right. So now we're going to take a poly curve, 5 points node, and that's going to basically connect the dots. And if we look at the way these are organized, we have 1 for each of our stringers. And there are our string lines. I'm going to explode those. I'm going to take the coordinate system at the start of each z-axis from the start of each of those coordinate systems. And now we've got a direction for up along each one of these, and we've got a curve. We can get into advanced steel stuff. So we're going to start with a beam. We're going to do a straight beam. We've got a couple options for beam by line. I'm going to go with the top option here. This needs an orientation and a line. I'm going to pull Dynamo off to one side. We've got advanced steel over on the other. And now I'm going to wire this in. Run completed. No change in advanced steel yet. Click back in here and zoom extents. There it is. All right. I am going to make one quick change here. I'm going to change my view so I can actually see stuff. Every time I do stuff in an AutoCAD vertical, I'd like to use conceptual for the sort of pushing Dynamo content through. All right, so now here we are. We've quickly created all those beams. Next up, let's go ahead and let's create our supports for our tread. To do that, we're going to need a line. My best fit through points, but our points want to go this direction now, right? They want to connect stringer 1 to stringer 2. So we're going to transpose, turn our rows into columns, our columns into rows. We've used this a few times over the series. We've got our lines, and there they are. And now we can take our coordinate system. Let's actually just use our regular old z-axis, and we'll copy this down. This needs a line and an orientation as well. So there's our line, there's our orientation, and go. And there they are. Now, we probably don't want everything built out of big wide flange steel pieces, right? So let's look at changing those. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. Both of them require sort of understanding what the strings for your different steel types are. We could do steel channels, we could do flats, we could do T channels, et cetera, but we have to work in the context of our advanced steel sort of tool set. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to maximize this real quick, and I'm going to see if I can remember. I always have a hard time finding this. Tools maybe? Nope. View, outputs, plugins, featured apps, plugins. Looking for my Management tools. Of course, it's on the home tab. All right, so then from in here, we've got our table editor. And inside our table editor, and advanced steel users probably know this pretty much by heart. We have to choose which one to open. There we go. And now we're looking for profiles. So there we are. Expand those, thank you. And look at all our options. Right, we've got some choices to make now. We've got some stuff that we can work with. So I'm going to work with, for this one, let's go ahead and let's try AISC flats. And just go ahead and copy all of this, pop them back over into Dynamo now. We need that, and we also need from our manager AISC space flat. Right, and with these two pieces, we can now go into our utilities and we can create a beam section string. Right, that looks like this. Those characters in between are super useful. And this is, as far as I know, the only way to actually get a beam section within Dynamo. So now we're going to take our straight beam and set up our section name there, and went ahead and hit run. We didn't get any voids, and hey, look at that. I now have plates for all these. I actually wanted to run that on this instead of those, so we're going to move this up here and let those other ones change over, and then we're going to see about not using plates for this one. But let's try, I don't know, how about a MT channel? We'll grab the 2x3. Whoop. AISC space 14. I think we actually need 14.1. There we go. And we'll try another one of these. Here we are. And one more of these. There we go. 2 channels made. Now, obviously, I've got some cleanup to do. We probably would want these pieces to actually be smooth instead of doing that sort of scale pattern, or I don't know, maybe that was your design intent. It probably wouldn't have been mine. But there you have it. Let's now take this next piece and run it from here to one more step. I think I've got 3 minutes left in what I wanted to spend for the demo, so we're going to be super quick. Oh no, I've got 5 minutes left. I've got time for that, as always. So let's go ahead and let's do set up some treads as well. So we're going to set tread angle to be equal to A0 to 1 minus A1 minus A1 bracket 1 minus A bracket 0 divided by 2. So this is going to sort of take those angles and it's going to set that. I've got an angle of 6 and 18. This is hopefully, yeah, half of that, half of that. So we're offsetting halfway between each of our actual tread heights. That's actually what I wanted. Now we're going to set tread height is going to be equal to E0. So we're going to grab our first elevation plus 1 and move up 1 inch. And then we need a tread radius is going to be equal to our Now we want to list our bracket 0 plus 1. So we're going to hold it a little bit in off that side, and our bracket 1 minus 1. And we're going to reuse this. There we go. There's our radius. There's our elevation. There are those points. Let's make a polycurve by points once again. Need to flatten that because I've got 2 sublists. All right, I've got a bit of a Z shape, which means I need to reverse one of my sublists. A bracket 0 is going to be my first list, and then ds core dot list dot reverse. So this is going to turn list 1, so the second sublist from this set, so that it's going the other direction. Instead of x94 followed by x90, we're going to have x90 followed by x94. So list dot reverse a bracket 1, and then wrap that in our list. Have a look at that. 9094. There we go. Both points made. And we now have a polycurve. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and under advanced steel grading. That's what we're after. So what do we got for grading options? Bar grading, standard grading, variable grading. Bar grading, it's just sort of standard by a line. Standard grading, rectangular, variable grading by polygon. All right, so, oh, this needs a polygon. Polygon by points. We'll change that data type real quick. Good. And then it needs a grading class and a graded name. So back over here, I'm going to pull this off to my other window so I can read a little bit quicker. All right, so we've got diamond standard and diamond standard 01. All right, only made it down at the first. You probably want to tread on every one of those though, right? So let's come back here and let's find out. We've got a coordinate system at each one of these. We're going to take the first coordinate system out, and we're going to transform from this coordinate system to all the other coordinate systems, this geometry. And instead of using this polygon, we're going to use that one, and we're good to go. And there you have it, quick parametric stair, built in 2 minutes longer than I had hoped. So sorry for running late to my colleagues and everybody else, but hopefully we're getting some good stuff out of this. And you can see we can start to flex this around. The advanced steel element binding isn't always super accurate, so be real careful about this. I do find that there's some duplicates that happen from time to time. When you just sort of do sort of bulk edits like this. Usually it's when you're not changing wholesale options, but smaller sort of stuff. So yeah, but anyway, sorry I couldn't be there. Hopefully you guys got some stuff out of this.
Awesome. All right. Well, big shout out and thanks to Jacob for that remote presentation today. He did record this at 11 this morning, and it's 1 p.m. local time when we do present. So kind of last minute. Shout out to Jacob on that one. So that concludes the sort of like introduction or overview into the other hosts that we haven't really touched yet. And like I mentioned previously, we're going to get deeper into other hosts with the next session upcoming, being in Revit, getting deeper into the Revit experience. But based on anything you've seen today or any other generic presentation, or sorry, Dynamo presentation issues or just Dynamo issues in general, if you have any questions, feel free to speak up, write in the chat, or come off mute, put your hand up. More than happy to answer them.
Maybe that answered them all.
Maybe so. So I would encourage, like I mentioned in the chat, to explore these other integrations, or at the very least, just open up a Dynamo file if you can get them and explore what their kind of approach on how to generate geometry, because it could inform your own and give you some more tools in your toolbox to achieve the result you're looking for. So without further ado, we do have some upcoming sessions, and this is based on 1 p.m. East Coast time, so EST time, and the next one is in 2 weeks, and that is going to be building more with Dynamo, which is jumping deeper into the connection between Dynamo and Revit. We'll be sending out blurbs on that in the not too distant future. Beyond that, we're getting more civil with Dynamo, which is jumping deeper into the Civil 3D connection. We're going to have Paulo Serra as a guest on that one, who created a huge package, a relatively or super important package that you probably can't live without in the civil world, which is going to be awesome. And then beyond that, we're going to jump even deeper into Revit's API. So working with sort of specifics inside of Python and Revit's API, and talking to things you might not be able to get out of the box with nodes today. And then again, more to come beyond that. Jonathan's asking in the chat, can the Dynamo generative design be used with FormIt? So generative design you can copy it across to your different Dynamo installs and use that in any baseline Dynamo. You don't get the full experience of what you get inside of Revit. So the dialogue and the pop-up that exists like it does in Revit, but you can use the package inside of Dynamo and work inside of the Dynamo space with that, yes.
All right. I will send everybody, I just posted some helpful links into the chat. I'll also email those out to everybody. I'm also going to paste a survey. It helps us shape the future events that you'd like to see. And there'll also be a link in the email to how to become your own community conversation speaker. So we're always looking for people that are talking about product trends, industry, all these different sessions. You're welcome to send in a proposal and or just email me and we can discuss it. We'd love to have you on the platform. So this is not just Autodesk employees. This is customers. This is all the different products, technologies, and industries. So thank you, Saul. And I would also remind people, while you're thinking of it, go out and subscribe on the community conversation page to the future sessions of the Dynamo. So that would be good, or any others that grab your fancy. We did get a question. We need a session about modular test fits. Are you volunteering, Charlie, or are you looking for somebody to jump into that? If you know of somebody, please point them to me. Anybody knows anybody in modular test fits? So modular construction, whatever. I'm guessing that is. But next, please.
Definitely, and I'd like to echo what Sean just said. And like, if you want to present with Jacob and I, or by yourself in the Dynamo Office Hours series, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to invite you to come and join the party with us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, if we had somebody that did the integration of, or the, we were talking about the hosting of civil and whatever. I don't remember the multiple products. Was it Alias? But doing the multiples in there out of process, that would be awesome to kind of give a reflection back on those integrations. So you can explore the many ways to connect the Autodesk community, including the global network of user groups, the group network, the industry-focused communities, the Autodesk Forums, of course, staying connected with us on Twitter. I also put the blogs. So we have the Voices blog now that is getting to be a lot of different products. And they are people from the community writing for the community. So this is end users of the products writing that have expertise in those. Everybody's welcome to be an author there if you want to reach out to me on that. And I'm hoping to have somebody from Dynamo, somebody that Saul knows very well. it would be awesome. So I'm hoping to get that done. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining us. Again, I will send out the links when the recording is available. It'll be available on the event page. And we hope to see you in future community conversations, or maybe leading one, or at AU, or all of the above. That's what I would prefer, all the above. So thank you, Saul, and Jacob, who was kind of an AI being today.
Yeah, thank you, JT, today a little bit. But thank you all for joining. Really appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to spread what we know around Dynamo, and hopefully see some cool things coming back from you guys in the not too distant future. Cool. Thanks, everyone.